Hey guys, hanging out with Michael Whittle. Michael, we were just chatting. I'm super curious about what you do at Pulpit AI. Give me
Yeah.
kind of an overview.
Yeah. Gosh, we honestly exist to amplify the voice of the local church pastor. So we really believe that the voice of the local church pastor is the most important voice in our culture today. And so
Yeah.
we have a software that basically just helps take the pastor's sermon, and create content around that, from like video clips to social media content, but we primarily are focused on discipleship and formational content.
What does that look like? What do you mean by discipleship when it comes to that? Is that devotionals out of the content? Is that, walk me through that a little bit
Yeah, we do, like devotionals, emails, small group guides, discussion
more.
questions, and we're really kind of in the process now of really looking at what that kind of like pastoral content workflow looks like and kind of helping them do courses and, all of that. So it's really trying to utilize AI to take that sermon as a source material,
Okay.
but how can that be used kind of in different contexts?
How do you make sure, the good question keeps being asked, theologically sound,
Yep.
making sure that it's not the pastor's voice,
Yeah.
that
Great
it's,
question.
very, it's the church's voice.
Yep.
Anyway, answer that question.
Yeah, so we work really, really hard on the AI side, to make sure that the content that is used as the source is the pastor's sermon. So what goes in is what
It's trained
comes
on
out.
pastor's
Yeah, it's
sermon.
trained on the pastor's sermon. It doesn't, kind of go out into a bunch of different data sets. We really try and keep it as closed of a data set as possible,
Hmm.
and that's not without its issues here every now and then. But
Right.
for the most part, what you put in is what
Yeah.
you get out, and we're really focused on trying to keep that.
How'd you get into this field? What's your
Honestly,
background?
it was accidental. My background is worked in startups for the last 15 years, predominantly in the advertising, media, and like ad tech space.
Okay.
But
Not ministry related.
not ministry related, but I've always done ministry. So like I'm a church kid, ministry kid, got radically saved. Actually had a church here in Dallas, Texas when I was 13.
Okay.
Ministry was all I ever wanted to do. Graduated high school early, went to Bible college. And then in my early 20s, church I was a part of just went through some difficult stuff that churches, go through part of. So it was sort of like if this is ministry, I don't want anything to do with it. And I
Right.
kind of hightailed to Los Angeles
Yeah.
and started working initially in the film industry. And then after about a year, got into the startup world. And then just ministry has just always been a thing that's super passionate to me. So planted a church with some of my best friends in Los Angeles in 2015.
Okay.
And have just been kind of like building the local church and business, but this is kind of the first time that's ever intersected. So I'm
My
about
gosh.
18 months into, my introduction into the world of church technology and
Okay.
all of that.
So how did Pulpit AI come about for you?
Yeah. So Pulpit AI came about. We were actually trying to build something a little very different. Actually, we were building sort of like what we were trying to like say was like the Barstool Sports of Christianity, So we were kind of do some like podcasts and newsletters that were a bit irreverent, a bit rough around the edges, but theologically orthodox. And
Yeah.
what we were building an audience, but we realized very quickly we didn't think it was going to be a very good business, and so we were kind of just trying to figure out what to do. And one day I uploaded the audio of one of our podcast episodes that was pretty theologically dense in nature to this other tool that I had found online, and was just blown away by what it was able to bring back. And so I called my best friend, who's also the pastor of my church, and I was like, let's get one of your sermon, files. Let's upload it and see what happens.
Right.
And that was that. And so
Yeah.
I literally that day was like, I did Pulpit AI. That was not available. It was available, but for way more than I could afford to spend. And Pulpit AI was available, bought it, called a friend of mine who was a developer at PayPal and said, hey, can we build a really simple web app that literally just uploads an MP3, turns that audio into a devotional and a discussion questions for small groups.
Okay.
And so he said, yeah. And he said, it'll take about, 8 weeks. 4 months later, it still wasn't done. And I got impatient and built a landing page, very simple landing page, and went to Twitter and just tweeted out, hey, launching this thing called Pulpit AI, looking for some people who want to test it out. That was on a Friday afternoon, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and it had gone viral on Twitter. This was the summer of 2023. And so that was the beginning of it. So I quite literally, when I say we like tripped and fell into to starting this, that's exactly what
Okay.
happened.
So I load my MP3. Can I load anything else? My YouTube clip?
Now it's everything, basically any kind of file you could have, as well as
Okay.
manuscripts,
Okay.
PDFs, any kind of file that you have. Yeah, you upload that to Pulpit AI, processes the video. We automatically generate. We built our own custom AI clip generator. That's not trained on virality or podcast clips or anything like that. It's specifically for pulling out whole theological ideas from sermons.
Okay.
And then we automatically deliver a bunch of different pieces of content for you. And then there's like a chat feature in there as well, where you can chat with your sermon, iterate on it, get some coaching on the sermon, and then also create other kinds of content around it.
Okay. Mainly the sermon, or have you guys expanded into other areas? But I think the main purpose is
Right now,
doing the
so right now it's very much sermon based, and it's really our intention to keep it sermon based.
Where do you think that visuals are going with this technology? We're talking AI imagery, AI video. How's that going to start integrating into what you are doing?
Yeah, it's not. We're, as a someone who loves the art and the craft of preaching
Yeah.
and teaching, it's a problem that we really feel called to solve and love getting into.
Yeah.
From a creative standpoint, I also just don't think and this may be like I just don't think it's there yet.
Right.
From the video editing to the clip to all of it.
Yeah.
So
The clipping is there.
the clipping is there, but from more editing,
Right.
editing and all that kind of stuff.
I think-
Even the clipping, it's like, as we've built out our own kind of proprietary, it's like, it's wild what complex things AI can figure out and what really basic things it can't.
Well, that's why I was shocked when the imagery first started coming out and it couldn't write hello.
Yeah.
I'm like, really?
Yeah.
You can do all this
I know.
other stuff, but you can't write, or you're going to give it a, 7 fingers? Like,
Absolutely.
what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I very much, there's a lot of talk right now about how AI will disrupt creativity, and
Yeah.
I do think there is a case to be made for the written word. My opinion is, like, from a visual perspective, I still think there's such a long way to go, and there's a level of visual expertise that AI just doesn't, frankly, it just can't do well right now.
Right. So you don't think it's going to replace the designer, the video editor, the motion designer anytime soon?
No, I think if you're cool with cliche, not great, basic stuff, then maybe. But I think, for anyone that cares about brand and all that kind of stuff, like, we need those artists to keep doing what they're doing, because there's the value is the thought that goes into creating it. So again, could be wrong, but I just, from what I've seen, and even in all the products I've tested and seen, it's just like, it's not quite there.
Right.
And not quite there. It's not even close to being there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, like, once they go to, well, if AI can do layers, I think the game's over.
Yeah.
Like, if it can deliver an Illustrator file, let's say if Adobe figures it out,
Yeah.
and delivers layers to where all the character is separated from the background, or the cloud is separate, layer is separated from the blue sky.
Totally.
Now I can animate the cloud.
Yes.
If I can do that, if I can pull the layers out, game changer.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Yeah. It doesn't, I mean, and I'm not a designer. I, am a novice Canva user. I could sort of work my way around Photoshop, but it would even seem like the AI tools that are already embedded there aren't even, like, the AI Canva stuff. It's like, it's just not, it doesn't produce a quality that you would want to. But I agree with you. The layering thing would be
be sick.
That would be a game changer,
Okay, where do you think that AI technology is going, especially as it relates to ministry?
Yeah.
Should we be scared of it? Obviously not. You're wanting to build a business around it, right? But what's the future?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it is all moving so fast. Anyone that feels confident saying a specific thing about the future, it's just, it's pontification. I think that it is revolutionary. I think it is changing everything. I think that when it comes to, like, the practical tools that we use, obviously there's so many use cases. I think for the preacher and the teacher, it does unlock something that's never existed before, which is, what can I learn from my whole sermon library?
Correct.
What can every sermon I've ever preached in one data set tell me about how I preach, what I believe, the tone that I use, right? So I think there's a lot of stuff, as I've said this, and I say this as someone who has a content repurposing app. that's a commodity. What are we at? We're in October of 2024.
Yep.
18 months from now, that's a commodity, right? It's easy to do. We're gonna have to get past that. Like, what's the wedge into the real thing that it unlocks? And that's
Right.
what it's learning about you in the data and all
Right.
that kind of stuff. And from a ministry perspective, I said this on the panel the other day. There's a lot of talk about like AI usage in the church, and that's fine. I think the thing we can't ignore is the impact that AI is going to have on our people that we're discipling. And so when it comes to like putting our head in the sand and going like, we have to ignore this, it's like, use it or not. But as ministers, we have to prepare our people for, hey, this is happening.
Right.
And I do think it's going to have pastoral implications like social media had, but it just.
In what way? Where do you see it going?
Yes, I'll give you like a really practical example, right?
Okay.
So I have a friend who's a pastor in Canada. And one day after a service, one of his congregants came up to him and said, "Hey, pastor, this particular guy had been a Christian for decades, had 2 young daughters. I think one was like, let's say 5 or 6, one was 3 or 4. He had just lost his wife. They had lost their mom to cancer the year before. And comes up to the pastor. Again, this is a Christian. This is not a new believer. This is someone who was a leader in the church. And he said, "Hey, I've found this service online where, for the last year of my wife's life," this is getting dark. I don't mean to make it dark, but it's a real pastoral implication, right? And it unlocks a bunch of theological questions. And he said, she was recording voice notes, and he said, so I've uploaded photos, videos, writings, voice notes, and we've created an avatar of her.
Wow.
That my kids can now interact with on the television, and I can interact with on the television.
Where's the avatar? How did you create the?
I don't know. It was something he found online, right?
Okay. Wow.
And so here in the one conversation, you have a pastor having to think through pastoring someone through grief, pain, suffering. What do you do when this thing promises to relieve suffering, right? Or think about like, you can right now you can clone your voice, and your children or family could never not have to go without hearing your voice, and you have to ask those. Or okay, so let's use that. Let's also use example of adult.
Should would be the question.
Exactly.
Should we do this?
Exactly.
Can we do this? Yeah.
Precisely.
Should we do this? Is it okay to have loss and
that's
mourning
right.
loss?
Exactly.
Do you need to live with your mom's voice forever?
Correct.
I don't know.
Those are some of the
that's the questions.
Yeah. So it's stuff like that. It's the most customizable relationship that anyone could ever create with somebody online. I have a friend whose whose mom lost everything to an AI financial scam, right? Like these are
right.
As we talk to pastors about building a tool, what we end up talking to them a lot about is like the stuff that they're pastoring people through. So I didn't mean to. I know we're talking about technology, but
there's real life applications to this. That's where it comes down to. Awesome.
Anyway, hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Well, I hate to land on that.
No. It's really dark stuff here.
But tell us how ministry leaders can find you and learn more about what you guys are.
Yeah. Our website's pulpitai.com. You can go there, sign up for a free trial. You get 2 free sermon uploads.
Yeah.
You can reach out to our team. We're still super new and early. We're growing really fast, but we like to talk to every single user. So reach out to us. We're on X and Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff. And there's a lot of really cool people doing stuff similar to what we're doing, and everything has kind of its own unique flavor. But there's a lot of really cool stuff happening in the body of Christ and AI right now, and we're excited about it.
It is. Thank you, Michael. Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks so much.
This has been a podcast presentation of Church Visuals. Executive produced by Carl Barnhill. Edited by Mario Franco. Title and show graphics by Angie Lomas. For more resources to help you visually communicate the gospel, visit churchvisuals.com.